Wow, that's a busy image I just put up. Woo!
Yeah.
Look at yours. It's about as simple gets. And then I have this in your face. You know, it's interesting. It's like I still love it and it's infrared. I've done this in color, black and white infrared, Sparks Lane and the Smokies. But man, that just struck me as pretty busy as I looked at the two together.
Hey, I'm curious. Can you see my little hand cursor on my screen?
No, uh-uh.
Oh, okay, because I'm poking you in the eye with it, so you don't see that. Okay.
Hey, so I got a thought that was inspired a little bit by our buddy Brooks Jensen. And it made me think about diary entries again, and your love of using Rick Rubin's idea of our images can be like a diary entry. And then Brooks was, and I want to try to combine these, so I'm doing this off the top of my head, but let's see if we can get there. I think I can. Brooks was then talking about how sometimes you can have an image, and let's just say you're at the Tetons, just because it's this majestic mountain, right? And you can make a photograph of the Teton, and I can show you that photograph, and that might not tell you much about me or about, yeah, you don't know much about me as a photographer, but there might be other images that I made at that same week that I was at the Tetons that I might make that might be more expressive and might reflect me a little bit more. And I think about Freeman Patterson, who says, you know, the camera points both ways, what we're making a photograph of, but it's also reflective of our inner light, if you will, and it's showing who we are. So I got thinking about that, and the idea that we make diary entries, but I got thinking about the reality is I wouldn't put that snapshotty type photograph of the Teton mountain range necessarily in my diary. That's probably going to go in my photo book that I might show to the family that says, here's an image, this is what the Grand Tetons look like. But I don't think that image says necessarily a whole lot about me. So, with that, I'm just curious what your thoughts might be, and if that helps put a little more meat on the bone of a diary entry, because I think there's a difference between a diary entry photograph and um, a snapshot for a vacation, booklet that I'm going to show of that experience. So anyways, hopefully that makes sense, and I'm trying to combine those two things together.
Well, if we went on a week's long trip and we came home and let's just say we printed out everything in 4x6s for the sake
Yep.
of easy talking, and you looked at an image and you said, okay, does this go in my scrapbook that shows you where I've been and what I've seen, or does this go into my diary? It would be a fun exercise.
Yeah.
Does the image simply show you what you saw with your eyes, or does the image tell you, the viewer, something about you and how you saw that scene?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you could, how one decides which goes into which, but I guess we are the ones who get to decide that.
Yeah, I think so.
We divided them up, and I wonder where would most of our images go in the photo scrapbook showing my vacation, my week's long trip to the Grand Canyon, or would it go into the diary that talked about how I felt, how I saw?
Does this boil down again to what is your intent? Why do you photograph? That's got to be part of this, because if your intent is to go to the Tetons to make banger images of the Teton at sunset with great color in the sky, and that's what you want to show, I mean, I suppose that can be a self-expressive type of photograph of that moment and that connection you're having.
Yes,
That could be that,
I guess.
right? Or what stimulated me to think about this is that idea that Brooks had. Oftentimes from one photograph, he can't really get an idea of what the connection was or about that person. Whereas oftentimes in a portfolio, a group of six or more images, let's say, he might be able to get a better idea of who I am through that portfolio. And that's just what I was wondering. So I think those diary images that you talk about are going to be much more expressive type photographs. They're not going to be postcardy type photographs. And I'm always reluctant to talk that way because I don't want anybody to think that we're being judgmental. When I'm in the Tetons, and because you and I are both doing the out of Chicago, out of Tetons thing, I'm going to make that photograph. I know I am because they're an incredibly beautiful mountain range. But I know I'm also going to make other images that are more expressive photographs that would probably go in the diary versus the scrapbook.
My wife and I have decided that every trip we take, we're going to do a Shutterfly book.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
going to be really showing people what we saw.
Right.
If I kept a journal during that same period, I doubt I would be writing down with words trying to describe what I saw with my eyes. I would probably be talking about how I felt and how I was moved and how it made me think about other things.
That's great, Cole. Right on the money. Because you're right. When we journal, we're encouraged to write more about the feelings. I mean, I do because I stink at writing. I will say I went to church today, or I went to the Tetons today. But then I really do try to say, and the experience in the Teton was X,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So in that, I like that comparison, Cole. That's right on the money. That diary entry is going to be much more introspective, and I would hope that the images that I'm choosing to put in the diary are going to be much more introspective.
Well, one would hope that seeing this grand, majestic scene leads us to thoughts much deeper than, wow, that's a pretty shot.
Yeah.
Another thought I had when you were talking about bangers, I would, in my mind, say that if you are creating an image to get a lot of likes,
Yeah.
that automatically goes in the scrapbook. It's not going to go in the diary.
Yeah.
If you're having any thoughts about how this will impress others, how it will sell, how it will win, how it will garner likes, it's a snapshot.
Yeah.
In my
Probably a good barometer.
yeah.
Probably a good barometer. Well, interesting. Well, thanks for letting me flesh that out a little bit. It's just I had Brooks's thought and I had diary entries from other discussions that we've had, and I just wanted to chat. So, folks, continue the discussion down below and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear them.